Deflection in Roof Decking by Ian Albitz. Anyone who has ever spent time inspecting, adjusting, or installing a residential roof has almost certainly experienced a spongy or soft deck on the roof. When in these situations, if you have ever wondered what to do or what specific manufacturers or building code requires, then this is for you. What is deflection? Deflection is the sag caused by weight in a structural member. Allowable deflection is generally expressed as a fraction of the span, in inches. All structural members will deflect, or sag under weight, load. The amount of sag or flex depends on the magnitude of the load applied, span, and stiffness of the member. Typically, for better performing roof decking, minimal deflection is desired. Chapter 3 of the International Residential Code, IRC, provides the maximum allowable deflection for a given structural member, floor, roof, wall, etc. For example, the allowable deflection of a 12-foot span floor joist with plaster, L/360, is 0.4 inch, 12 feet divided by 360. If that same joist had gypsum ceiling, L/240, the allowable deflection is 0.6 inch. When discussing roofing, there should be no question that a roof assembly includes the decking. The 2018 IRC says plainly in the introduction to Chapter 9, which covers roofing, Chapter 9 regulates the design and construction of roof assemblies. A roof assembly includes the roof deck, vapor retarder, substrate or thermal barrier, insulation, vapor retarder, and roof covering. 1. Asphalt shingles. Specific to asphalt shingle roofing, the 2018 IRC says that shingles must be installed on a solidly sheathed surface. The generally accepted interpretation of this requirement is simply that it is distinguishing a continuous roof deck from one that is made up of spaced lumber, commonly called spaced decking. It does not and is not intended to be a reference to being structurally solid or well built. The 2018 IRC covers installation and materials specifications for roof decks in Chapters 5 and 8. R 908.1 through 908.5 covers re-roofing and makes several things very clear. Materials and methods of re-roofing must conform to new roofing code. The roof must be structurally capable of supporting the new roof, as well as the loads placed upon it during the installation process. Re-roofing must start by removing the old roofing covering completely down to the decking surface, bare wood. The requirements of Chapter 9 that reference the necessity to ensure the structural integrity of the roof and supporting components during a re-roof almost certainly intended that the already existing minimum standards were to be the criteria used, and there most likely was not any intention to suggest that random criteria be applied as the definition of structural integrity. This opinion is supported by the published opinions and technical articles of multiple industry organizations. The NRCA 7 and the ARMA are two leading examples. In addition, the IRC states that the installation of all parts of the roof assembly must be in accordance with the manufacturer's installation instructions. Both the IRC and most manufacturers refer to the APA's E30 publication as the proper methodology and specification for the installation of OSB and plywood decking. So again, there are specific deflection limitations that are in effect and listed by both the IRC and the APA. In engineering, deflection is the degree to which a structural element is displaced under a load due to its deformation. 13. Specific to roof decks, the structural element is the OSB, and the load is either the roofing material, you, or any other person on the roof, or both. Deflection is most often measured at an unsupported joint. The limitation in effect is 1/180 of span. This assumes live plus dead load, which would exist if you are standing there to check. You would be the live load, and the dead load specification is 1/240 of span. Span refers to the distance between supports, rafters for example. For most residential roofing situations with rafters or trusses set at 16 24-inch centers, the deflection limits for live plus dead load are 1/8 with 24 centers and 1/16, 5/64 with 16 centers. What's it all mean, man? In simple terms, if you step on a roof, and it sags under your weight more than 1/8 inch, you are outside the required limits of what is allowed. If the supports, trusses or rafters, are on 16-inch centers, it is actually less, so consider that if you are in that specific situation. 1/8 is an easy reference to remember. Without your weight, the allowable deflection is less than 1/16 of an inch. In these pictures it might look like the plywood is being intentionally stood on, and that is because it is. The condition of live plus dead load is specifically referred to in code as the ability to support the weight of the new materials and the workers on the roof. It would be impossible to document construction loads without standing on the unsupported joint. The deflection limitations are an overall requirement that exist for all thickness of OSB. Common sense suggests that 3/4 inch OSB will have less deflection than 1/2 OSB, and it's probably an accurate assumption if you made it. Just remember the limitation remains regardless of the thickness. The deflection limitations listed by the APA and most manufacturers' warranties being dependent on adherence to them makes this a significant requirement, and although it is backed by building code, it also exists completely on its own and is required by the manufacturer even in the absence of building code. Wide areas of deflection should be replaced, but keep in mind is that minor or non-systematic deflection issues when remodeling can sometimes be solved with blocking. However, the implementation of blocking as a solution is or can be problematic due to multiple issues such as confined spaces, gusset plates, preventing fastener access to intended blocking, attic access, or the areas needing blocking simply being in the lower portion of the roof, where the attic height is well below typical. Confined height and installation is impossible. Personal experience is that installing blocking as a solution to deflection issues is only viable in a new construction-like environment. 2018. Often in a re-roof project the cause of widespread deflection is apparent, other times it is not. In most cases it rarely is linked to the reason for re-roofing. This can cause endless debate amongst parties as insurance claims are handled. And as the famous saying goes, or to paraphrase, there are probably as many opinions as the number of people involved. One thing that can't be argued is that proper attention must be given to the structural portion of the roof, and you can't install shingles on an improper deck. In low slope, 2/12, 4/12 environments, the importance of deflection becomes magnified. A momentary instance of a 1/4 inch deflection would cause water to run backwards on a 2/12 slope. The biggest concern beyond the structural effects and specific to asphalt shingle roofing is how deflection affects the product's ability to function properly over the intended course of its useful life. The simple act of walking on a roof that deflects under live load will cause every shingle stepped on to break a seal. The importance of the roof deck to a long-lasting and properly functioning product cannot be underestimated and should not be ignored. To highlight this, compare these to comments from the authors of the 2018 IRC. Both comments address how code affects the necessity for possible additional work to roof decking while re-roofing. Number 1. Another measure of the viability of the addition, alteration, repair or relocation is that it does not cause the existing structure to be adversely affected or made unsafe. The application of this provision can often be confusing regarding what code requirements apply to the addition, alteration, repair or relocation. For instance, removal and replacement of a fiberglass roof covering with the same type of roof covering would require that the new shingles, fasteners and underlayment meet the standards and methods specified in the code. However, this does not mean that the roof structure and decking would need to be designed to resist the snow loads in the code. 2018 IRC Code Plus Commentary Chapter 1 R 102.7. Number 2. The provisions require that when an existing building is re-roofed, the existing roof be structurally sound and in a proper condition to receive the new roofing. It is often necessary to remove the existing roof covering prior to installing the new roofing materials. A fundamental requirement throughout the code is the recognition of the impact of any new repair or replacement work on the structural system. If a new roof covering system is installed, the structural members of the roof and Any additional structural members that carry roof loads must be reviewed for their ability to support the loads that will be imposed during the installation process. This includes the weight of the new roof covering materials, as well as any installation equipment that is placed on the roof. 2018 IRC Code Plus Commentary Chapter 9, R906.1 R906.2. It's easy to see how either of those statements could cause some questions to be asked. Most people would immediately question which statement takes priority, however code itself answers that question. R102.1 General. Where there is a conflict between a general requirement and a specific requirement, the specific requirement shall be applicable. Where, in any specific case, different sections of this code specify different materials, methods of construction or other requirements, the most restrictive shall govern. It is fairly obvious that R906.1 is specific to re-roofing, and would be a specific requirement, and R102.7, which is titled under Scope and Application General, would be a general requirement. It does seem to distinguish the importance of the issue above others, or possibly just contradict. Personally, I think the first statement refers to redesigning something, and the second refers to replacing some plywood, and there is no conflict. Ian Albitz, Code Guru. Xactimate Level 3 Certified Licensed Roofer, Lake Company. IN Ian at codeguru.claims. 708-244-1177.